sound of silence. My name is Anthony McCashin. I'm in the School of Social Work and Social Policy, and this is my colleague Gloria Kierban here, also from the school. And we're going to do a presentation on, in this order, TR083, which is Sociology and Social Policy, which I'll talk about, and Gloria then will follow on talking about TR084, which is Social Studies. And just as a housekeeping detail, it would help if people were to stay for the full session. In other words, you may have decided that the first kind of presentation is the one you really want to hear about, but not necessarily the second. But it would help just to let everybody hear and to have a bit of order if people were willing to bear with us until the full session is over. We have to be out of the room physically in any event, as it happens, by around 25 to 1. So I'm hoping that people can tolerate that. And if people come in late, you might just point to people to the fact there's plenty of seats here up the front, okay? So anyway, good morning again and welcome to Trinity College. Congratulations, you might get bonus points for getting up very early on a cold Saturday morning to come in and do this. I certainly feel I should have. But I hope you have a successful day, and do take your time to visit the stalls and get leaflets and so on. And do feel free after the end of this session, when we've made presentations and so on, or at the stalls, to ask questions and so on. It's your chance, of course, in particular, to meet students who are actually on the course. So they're quite happy to tell you out of the earshot of lecturers what it's really like, so to speak. So just make sure you get a chance to actually find out what it is you want to find out. Okay, now just to clarify, TR083, to be distinguished from TR084, just one important point, which I'm sure Gloria will also stress, is that TR084 is the professional qualification in social work, which needs to be distinguished from the presentation I'm making, which is about TR083, Sociology and Social Policy. And the important difference, as Gloria will explain in some detail, is that the latter, TR084, is a professional qualification. TR083 is a general course in the academic social sciences. Okay? So, as you can see, it's a 4-year degree. You're awarded a degree in what's called Sociology and Social Policy. The points you see on the presentation there, 445, are the points for the final round offers. In other words, the first round points were 450 in 2012, and the final ones then were 445. Okay, the points for TR084 are different, but Gloria will come to that. So what is this about? One general point maybe to say to you all, aside from what's formally on this presentation, is that sociology and social policy is a multidisciplinary degree that spans a number of the different social sciences. It's not unlike BES. So some of you may have been to the TR084 talk and may have an interest in BES. You'll observe as we go through the presentations here that some of the content of this degree overlaps quite a bit with BES. And if you're interested, broadly speaking, in a degree that gives you exposure to a number of different subjects, some economics, some political science, sociology and so on, sociology and social policy does that to some extent as well, okay? But minus the economics and minus a few other things as well. So there's, if you like, it's best, so to speak, with an emphasis on the social and on the social policy, and it's therefore more applied in the social area. So what's social policy? These are examples of the broad kind of questions you get about social policies, and I'm not going to give a lecture now, but what is social policy? It's about, if you like, the way in which society and the state intervenes to solve problems. And of course, the definition of problems themselves is part of what you would be studying. So the state takes responsibility, doesn't it, for issues to do with poverty, with childcare, with homeless needs, with income distribution and so on. These are things that are at the core of what social policy is all about. So these are examples of very, very specific questions now that students, for instance, in their first year cover. So that one of the classes, for instance, on Monday morning, addresses that particular question up there: what are the causes of poverty in Ireland? And so one of the things that's going to occur to you all is, some of you may indeed have experienced the phenomenon of poverty as well. How exactly do you define this? In other words, do you have some kind of notion in your head that we can identify very, very basic needs we should all have. And then anybody who doesn't have those needs is below that threshold and is therefore, quotation marks, poor. Or do you do something a little bit more widely and define poverty in terms of something much wider like inequality? That some people have more and some people have less, and that's therefore unequal and unfair in some way. And these kind of questions, some of which can be expressed numerically in terms of numbers. If you quantify poverty this way, it's X, and if you quantify poverty that way, it's Y. That's a very, very good example of the kind of material the students would be studying. And so in the next couple of days, I'm expecting, for those of you who read the newspapers, that you'll see a report in the newspapers about the Irish government's latest annual set of figures on what's called income and living conditions. And undoubtedly the newspapers will have a headline to do with X% of the Irish population now poor and so on. So if you wanted to understand a little bit more about what that means, where did they get that definition? Is it correct? Is it higher in other countries than and so on? They're the kind of analytical questions underpinning those kind of headlines that you'd be studying on one of the important courses you'd be doing in this degree programme. So if we moved ahead to the next, who takes the course? Mostly school leavers, but we do have a mix of mature students as well, and also some international students. And in fact, like any other degree programme, that mix of students makes it particularly interesting. And school leavers and mature students in particular have a very, very interesting dynamic. It means that you have a combination of both academic knowledge and life experience in any one class group. And it's a particular feature of both the TR 084 and the TR 083 programme that maybe about a third, not a third, but perhaps around a quarter of the students are mature students. And by mature, I mean now, I guess a lot of you here would think they're geriatric rather than mature, but we have students in the class groups in their 40s and 50s, as well as students who are school leavers. Okay? So these are the schools within Trinity from whom you draw. In other words, our school of Social Work and Social Policy, hosts the degree, so to speak, and coordinates it and manages it. But within the framework of that, you'd be studying subjects offered by individual subject departments like political science and economics and sociology and so on. And so in that sense, a point to remember is that when you're studying these other subjects offered by sister departments, you'd be mixing with students doing other degree programs. You'd be mixing with students doing business, doing TSM courses with sociology as a subject and so on. So the composition of the classes isn't, if you like, a small ghettoized group of people who happen to be doing your particular combination of subjects. You'd be mixing with students from right across the wider faculty of arts, humanities and social sciences. This is an introduction to the modules in the first year. If you've had a similar presentation about BESS, you'll see it's very similar. It's a foundation year with a little bit of sociology, political science, economics, and so on. The top four subjects are obligatory, and the bottom two, then you have the bottom layer of subjects. Then you have two options. And no, just to anticipate the question which you'll get at the desk every morning: do you have to do maths and stats? No, you don't. My own view is that maths and stats, it's like a good breakfast. It doesn't necessarily taste nice, but they're good for you. But in any event, you don't have to take maths and stats. But you can see here that the important thread that runs right throughout the degree is that in every year, you have an element of choice about how you make up the full quota of subjects for that year. Thanks, Laurie. This is year two. You can see there's a heavy emphasis then in year two on, let's call them, the very specific social policy subjects that differentiate this programme from other programmes. So you have to do social research, European societies, one course on economics, and then two other modules. And a thing to note about the final line on the overhead here is about the broad curriculum option. I'm guessing that you've been referred to this in any other talk you might have been to. But the essential point here is that it's general college policy that students following any individual degree programme should have a choice in their second year to do something way outside the immediate remit of the course they're doing, to give them a chance to dabble in knowledge, to study other subject areas, to meet students doing other subjects and so on. So you can do a language, you can do a course in psychology and so on. And the possible mix of broad curriculum courses you can do does of course vary, but it's very much part of the whole ethos of the course of giving students a degree of flexibility about their final choice of subjects. This is year 3, where you're doing more research, quite a lot of sociology, a course on comparative welfare states, in which Ireland is looked at in the context of other societies and other economies and so on. And you do 2 additional modules as well as those 4 compulsory ones. Now, I should say, and I'm sorry, yes, it does say actually at the very end, you do have the option in this degree programme, as you would in BES and in TSM and many other courses, to do an Erasmus year, or either 1 term, a half year, so to speak, or the full academic year away as to meet your 3rd year requirement. It's about, it varies from year to year, but about a quarter of the students take up that option, either on a full basis or on a partial basis. And then this then is year 4, where you've had all of your subjects now, by the time you've got to the 4th year, have, as it were, narrowed down or specialised down into the areas that are very exclusively about the core subjects in the degree, sociology and social policy. If Glory could slip back up again, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. You have to do, it's important to note, what's called a dissertation in here. That's a thesis, which of about 20,000 words, under supervision, on the topic of your choice. So part of what makes the degree interesting, and part of the reason why you get a 4-year degree in Trinity, as distinct, say, from a 3-year degree in other colleges, is that you have to do this major assignment, and it's on a topic of your own choosing, and it as it were, gives you real-world practical experience of actually doing research yourself. Now, by that point, you'll have done a course in research in both 2nd year and 3rd year, and that's by way of a foundation for undertaking your dissertation in the final year. So even though students, I have to say, find it challenging, even the idea of having to choose a topic they find challenging, but by the time they get to the end of finishing their dissertation, it's a bit like saying, psychologically, students saying, well, I did my degree and I wrote this as well. It feels like an extra psychologically, even though it's a challenge at the time. What are the careers? I should add, you're not training to be a stockbroker, so you're not going to make a fortune based on anything you would learn in this degree. Okay? But that said, you can think of this degree as, again, in career terms, not unlike BES, because it doesn't close off any specific area, and it gives you a foundation for lots of degrees in both the public and in the voluntary sector. So the last graduate I met from the degree, I happened to meet this person socially in the last week, is somebody who's gone into political life. A week before that, I met somebody who's doing journalism, editing a special journal by a group called Age Action Ireland. Another person is working on a youth development project. Somebody else, in turn, has spent their 2 years since college working on a development project overseas. So the outlets are very, very varied. And some students, of course, then end up going, as it happens, because this is what they think they might always have wanted to do, doing postgraduate study, of course, which is always an option. But some students, too, also go into social work by way of doing an additional professional qualification. So it's eclectic, if you like, in career terms. There is, funnily enough, the range of careers is such that actually the employment prospects for this degree, as they are for social studies, as Gloria would say, are actually quite good, because one of the sectors that's open to you, that's not open to many other graduates, is the voluntary sector, which is thriving and very diverse and so on. So that will give you an example of the kind of things people do. And these are examples of the employers. And these are examples of the kinds of postgraduate courses people do. You can see one of the things on the list here is an MSc in Applied Social Research, which is a training that allows people to become professional researchers. And it involves a work placement, actually working on site in, let's say, the Educational Research Centre at St Patrick's in Drumcondra, or one of the big opinion poll organisations, or the Economic and Social Research Institute, or the New City, and so on. So lots of students top up their degree with this MSc because of the work placement that goes with it. It opens doors into working as a researcher. Lots of them go into professional social work, not necessarily immediately afterwards, but they get a bit of life experience and they then come back and they top up this qualification with a professional social work one as well. So the possibilities are many and varied. I think this is the last thing I'm supposed to say, to remind you about your CAO deadline. I know your parents and your teachers have hassled you about it already, but I'm entitled to do that as well. You know about the deadlines. There's a separate deadline for mature students and so on. You can see all of that. There's the further information, including leaflets specifically about each of these courses, available in the examinations hall, where you'll see the School of Social Work and Social Policy desk. So do feel free to come along there and ask any questions of the students who are there. Both Gloria and I are going to be here at the end of this session, so you'll have a chance to talk to us immediately after this session is over. I don't think there's anything else I want to add. As I say, we'll be quite happy to answer any specific questions about this programme when the session is over. So for the moment, thanks for your patience. I'm going to get Gloria then to follow on and talk about TR 084, which is social work.
All right, good morning everybody, and you're very welcome to Trinity College, and a special welcome to the School of Social Work and Social Policy. Tony has given you actually a lot of information that's relevant to the 2 degree programmes that we offer in the School of Social Work and Social Policy, so I'm not going to repeat a lot of what he said. But I'm going to move swiftly on to the Bachelor in Social Studies degree programme, which again we're just going to say to you that is TR 084. So if you don't want to be a social worker, don't mix it up with TR 083 and vice versa. Currently I'm the Director of the Bachelor in Social Studies degree. It is specifically for anyone who is interested in pursuing a career in social work. And it leads to a professional level qualification. So I'm going to preempt a lot of questions, and I'm really going to clear this up here and now. The typical route in Ireland to reach the level of professional accreditation in social work is to do an undergraduate degree, such as the Sociology and Social Policy that Tony has just spoken about, and then to do a further 2 years Masters in Social Work. There is one degree in Ireland that remains accredited at an undergraduate level for school leavers, which leads to that professional level accreditation, and that is the Bachelor in Social Studies in Trinity College. The reasons for that are mainly historical, but they're also current. Trinity College was the first university to provide third level social work education in this country, and it has always been a leader in the field of social work education in Ireland. There are other colleges who are involved, and they all do extremely good work now in this field. But as time went by and there was an acceptance that social work probably required people to qualify at a master's level, most of the universities have moved in that direction, and many of them will only provide master's level qualifications. But because Trinity had this historical programme, which is a 4-year, full-time, dedicated programme to social work qualification, which aspires to have teaching of the highest standard for people who wish to enter that profession. The current state accrediting body of social work continues to support, and I have no doubt will continue to support, the BSS degree as a direct entry route into social work, where people attain the professional level at the end of 4 years. And I know particularly parents may be saying, are you sure, when you tell them that this is the case? And I'm confirming it for you this morning. When you finish your BSS degree, you are eligible to apply to register as a social worker. Excuse me. You're exactly at the same level as people who have completed any Masters in Social Work degree programme in Ireland. So there are many advantages to that, in that clearly you can come straight from your Leaving Cert into this programme, and for mature students as well, they can just come into one programme, and at the end of those 4 years they have attained the same professional level of accreditation as their counterparts coming off the Masters in Social Work programmes. We also have a Masters in Social Work programme, as Tony has alluded to, for people who maybe weren't too sure at this stage, and they may sign up for either BESS or Sociology and Social Policy or any of the other social science degrees in the universities across the country. And they can then later on apply to come in and do a 2-year Masters. But clearly it will have taken them a lot longer to achieve that professional level of qualification. So it's an easy route in that it's a direct route, but it's not an easy route, because in that 4-year programme, we have to give you a social science degree, but we also have to prepare you to work as a professional social worker. So you're sort of doing 2 things all at the same time. So it's not for people who see coming to college as a place where they're going to have a lot of free time and, time to do other things apart from their studies. It's a serious course. We have a lot of ground to cover, and people need to come in really prepared to put in some hard work. But the prize at the end is well worth it. Okay. So as I say, it's a dual award, and at the end, when we give you the degree in Trinity College, with that degree, you are eligible to apply to register as a professional social worker in Ireland. Again, like most degrees in Trinity College, we have a small intake. We take in 45 students in total, and it's a mixture of people coming directly from the Leaving Cert into college, people who maybe haven't done their Leaving Cert but are now over 23 years of age, and they apply through a separate process, but they come into the same place. And they can apply as mature students. We also take people through the DARE scheme and the HERE scheme and the Trinity Access Programme scheme. So if any of those people are in the audience today, there are places from all of those streams on the BSS degree. And in addition, we have places for additional numbers if people come from non-EU countries. We can take an additional few students as well. So again, we have a very eclectic mix of students. Clearly, people come onto this degree because they initially at least think they would like to work in social work. However, it is a social science degree, and all the options that Tony described that are there for graduates of general social science degrees, they still apply to students who have done the Bachelor in Social Studies. But mainly people are interested in seeking employment as social workers. And at the moment, like in any sector, jobs are not as easy to find. Typically, from my programme, we have a 100% placement rate for anybody who wishes to work. They typically will find it very easy. I would say it has been a little bit slower this year. And some graduates are sitting on panels where they've been interviewed, but they haven't been appointed to their jobs yet. But I met a graduate yesterday, somebody who qualified last summer, and he is already permanently employed in one of the major Dublin hospitals. So the point of that is that our graduates are well sought after, and when there are vacancies, employers like to get people who have spent 4 years as opposed to maybe shorter periods in other countries. The 4-year degree in Ireland is well sought after, both in Ireland and it's recognised internationally. So it's certainly going to give you the best possible advantage when it comes to seeking employment. And again, just as in all social science degrees, you're going to do a range of subjects that are relevant to that field. We require our students in the first year to study political science, sociology, economics, psychology, social policy, and there are optional modules in a variety of languages. Alongside all those social science subjects, however, from the beginning, from first year, you're going to be introduced to what we call the theory of social work. And that will include things such as group work, community work, counselling skills, ethical practice, and what else have I got there? Equality studies. So there will be specific modules that only the social studies students take. They'll be with the bigger group who take a variety of different degree programmes for the general social science subjects. And that gives you an opportunity to mix and mingle and befriend people from other degree programmes. But specifically for social science or for social studies students, there are a number of modules which are required, they're not optional, and which you must take. And in each of the years, there will be some of those modules, because we're building the social work knowledge foundation for you at the same time as the social science. So the kind of things that those modules would look at will be things like family and childcare, health issues, health-related social work, social work in mental health settings, whether that's children, adolescent, youth mental health or adult mental health settings, disability settings, criminal justice and social work, community development, occupational social work. There are many, many organisations and private employers who employ people with social work or social work types of degrees to provide welfare services for their staff. So that is often a field of practice that people aren't aware of, but actually there's quite a lot of employment in that sector. And working with minorities, working with immigrant populations, etc., etc. The list is endless. But these are all the kinds of fields of practice that social workers are engaged in. They work in the health services, they work in the hospitals, they work in child protection, they work in mental health services, they work in probation settings throughout the country. Probation officers are employed to work with people who are coming through the criminal justice system. They're probably the biggest employers, but there are just so many different job opportunities and many jobs that people with a social work qualification are suited for. They may not be called social workers in those particular jobs, but their social work qualification completely prepares them to do that. So there is actually quite a wide variety of opportunities once one is qualified. And there's something in there for everybody. Some people might say, well, I wouldn't like that field, but I'd be really interested in working with people with disabilities or whatever it might be. So we don't expect you to want to work in every single one of these. And as we go through the programme, you will have to do practice placements. And we do try and match your interests with the places where we send you out on placement to gain work experience. Conscious of my time. Okay. Okay. There are 4 placements across the degree programme. There has to be, because we're qualifying you to be ready to work. So actually counting up, there's about 44 weeks in total across the 4 years when you are actually working in a placement agency, working under the supervision of qualified staff who will teach you, who will support you, and who will assess you in your ability to carry out this work. So you really get a lot of hands-on experience. Again, sometimes people are a little bit hesitant. They're not sure. They say, oh, I mightn't be able for this, or I'd really like to do this job, but I've never really done anything like this before. Well, of course you haven't. How would you have been able to do it? That's why we have a 4-year degree. And that's why we have so much practical experience, applied experience built in to the programme. So every year you spend a number of weeks in a placement agency getting direct experience, and then we bring you back into college. And we talk to you about that, and we get you to, in a way, critically analyse what have you experienced, what does it all mean, how did you do, and how could you have done better? What skills do you need, what knowledge do you need? And that's almost individualised. You will all have, by 3rd year, an individual social work tutor who will spend time having those kind of very focused conversations with you, with an aim to get you ready by the end of the 4th year to be out there, qualified and practising independently. Now, I'm just really conscious of time, Tony. We're going to run out of time, so I'm just going to skip along a few slides. Okay. We'll just go again. All right. So it's very similar information that Tony has given you. You need to fill out your CAO application form. If you're a mature student, you have to fill out your CAO application form and the mature student application form for Trinity College. Last year, the points for BSS were 465. The year before, they were a little bit lower. The year before that, they were much higher. So it's very hard for me to give you a definite indication as to what they will be this year. What I will say is there is very strong demand for this programme, and because it is the only direct entry route for people coming through the Leaving Cert application route, it's unlikely that it will ever dip below 450 in the foreseeable future. I think there will continue to be strong demand for places on the programme. Okay. Okay, we have a stand over in the exam hall. Tony and I are there at different times during the day. I'll certainly be there this afternoon. I'm just very conscious that we probably have time for one or two questions if there's anybody who really has to go and needs to give us a question straight away. Is there anybody with a question? No? Okay. Well, I look forward to your applications and